Wix Studio, one end-to-end web creation platform for your agency to deliver exceptional work with absolute efficiency.
The #1 long-form writer that helps SEOs outrank competition at the click of a button using real-time research and NLP. Start ranking content today with contentatscale.ai.
Hello everyone, thanks for having me. Thanks for making it back from lunch on time. So, I'm Jack, British-born, grew up in Barcelona, living in Berlin, where I work as a senior tech SEO manager for Omio. I'm here to talk to you about how we create unique content with open source, the what, why, has it worked, what learnings did we have, and so on. But before we get into it, let's start with a prediction. So, don't worry, it's not from me, it's from Google. Has anyone seen this? Yep. Essentially, they're scared, as are OpenAI, and they believe that open source is the future of generative AI. Let's see. Let's meet up again in a year and see if that's come true. But anyway, enough about that. Let's get into it. So, Omio is an online travel platform. We sell train, bus, ferry, and flight tickets. We work with 1,000+ companies, and we're in 37 countries in Europe and in North America. For that, essentially, take away lots of supply. And that supply, we try and market it in a global way. We have 22 languages and 31 different domains. So yeah, we have to take that large number of routes, very large number of routes, and promote that as well as we can in as many different languages as we can to our global user base. So that's where we are now. Obviously, as a company, we have a vision, a product vision of where we want to be, and that is to go anywhere, anyway. So we need to make sure that everything we're doing within the SEO team, the organic team, ladders up to this company vision. But before we go on, for those of you who work in travel, do you remember March 2020? Fun times. Actually, out of interest, can anyone guess what this is the Google trend for? Have a think. All right. Toilet paper, obviously. Google the first one. It's interesting. But yeah, anyway. Obviously, we all remember it, and Omio certainly does. There, that was where we were. We lost 98% of our revenue overnight. And global pandemic aside, the reason that we're here is we had another problem. We also had a problem in how we generated our content. We had no scalable solution to content generation. Let's break that problem down a little bit. There's 3 main parts. The first one is we didn't have the tools or the processes that we needed to scale. That led to high production costs. There was a linear relationship between the amount of content we produced and the costs that we had. And those two things together led to our old friend, thin content across our website, so we had an overall site quality issue, let's say. We needed a problem statement because that's what product managers want, so this is what we gave them. We need to generate high quality, obviously, scale, and for the right price. There has to be an ROI. So this is the problem statement that led us to start thinking about this and start looking into different solutions. Whenever we approach a problem like this, it's a complex problem, something that Agile deals well with. We needed to think about how we were going to approach it in the first place. And for that, we go back to the strategy and the vision, always. We needed to make sure that any solution we came up with fit into where we wanted to go as a company and how our channel, our marketing organization was going to support that growth. So we were at a bit of a crossroads at the time, and we had been very content-led, content-focused for a long time. And we realized that if we wanted to continue scaling and we wanted to keep pace with our company vision, we needed to shift towards a more product-led approach. Product-led, I'm sure lots of people have heard about it. It's something that I won't explain. I'll let Kevin Indig do it. He's a very good German SEO, by the way, with a very good newsletter called the Growth Memo, I think. So yeah. He essentially breaks it down into two things. You have inventory-driven sites and content-driven sites. Inventory-driven means your users or your product generate data that has value, and you give it to people in whatever format you choose. The content-driven sites is the content is the value itself, right? Your editorial copy is what people want. A quick note here, obviously it's not binary. You can have different things. You can be in different places on that spectrum. And yeah, it depends on the use case, of course. But yeah, this is 1.0 Omio on the human-driven very much. And we wanted to move towards more of the data-driven, inventory-led approach. Obviously, the 2.0. Anyway. So that's what we wanted to do, but it doesn't really answer the what we did and how we went about approaching the problem. So we realized that the main thing we were missing was a data-to-content capability. We knew there was data in our organization we could use, but we didn't have the way of consuming it and generating valuable content from it. Obviously, that content needs to focus on user intent and rank, but yes. The way that we approach these problems is, first of all, to define the opportunity, or the opportunity cost of not doing it. That's the problem statement we discussed. The second one, and this is the second phase, this part for me is incredibly important, and it's making sure that you're exploring all of the potential solutions with an open mind and being as flexible as you can be in your thinking. You compare, combine, contrast, so on, and ultimately you get to a solution. You need to choose something, right? You have to choose it, implement it, and from there you can start the iterative process of scaling, learning, adapting, and if it doesn't work, retiring it, but hopefully you don't have to do that. So, let's talk about phase 2, exploring solutions. What we did was go out and look at as many different tools as we could and test them, compare them. And yeah, that led us to narrow down the decision to this. Sorry about the slide, I can help. To build or not to build. So a build or buy decision, right? In this particular problem, the build or buy was between a software as a service content generation tool or the alternative open source option that we had found. There's pros and cons, and a little disclaimer here. We have an SEO team, we have budget, and we have engineering resources. I know, shocker, but it does happen sometimes. So obviously the pros and cons in your decision will be influenced by your particular situation. But yeah, so the software as a service has real obvious benefits for us. It's very fast in terms of go-to-market. You can get something live quickly. It has a lot lower maintenance costs because it's a software that you're buying off the shelf. And typically there's a user interface, a UI that people can use. So it makes it easier to use. The open source, and if you remember the revenue slide, has a very important benefit, which is the price. It's free. But there are others as well. It gives you a lot of control. It allows you to really build it to fit your use case. And it allows you to scale. Typically, the software as a service also allows you to scale, but you pay per refresh. Whereas with this open source tool, you don't pay per refresh, so you can generate as many texts as you want. So, I mean, if you haven't read the title of the talk, then this might be a surprise. But obviously, we went for the open source. So yeah, what is it? It's called RosaeNLG. It's a natural language generation library. It's built off JavaScript. It has language resources, especially for European languages, but it allows you to generate content in any language. And yeah, it's template-based and fairly easy to use, production-ready, all of the other stuff that engineers look for. So this answered the first key question: what will we use to generate content? But it didn't answer all of the questions that we had for this project. We also needed to know how the whole system was going to work. Now, this is as simplified as we can make it, and I've had it explained to me many different times as well by the engineering team. By the way, shout out to Rafa, who will listen to this at some point. He built most of it. But yeah, the system that we have does three things. We collect data from our product mostly, but not exclusively. And we aggregate it, things like duration, time, price, distance, so on, for us as a travel company. Then we create texts using RosaeNLG in this case, but it could be any other solution. And we have a proxy or an intermediary that goes between the two. So we need to receive the data, generate the text, take the text, and put it on the page. So now we have both a way of generating content and a way of putting that content onto the page efficiently with a refresh process and so on. So we still haven't answered what we're going to do, actually. What content do you want, and why do you want that content? I'm not going to talk about this much because you all know it, and other people are talking about it better than I am. So, compare yourself to the competition, cluster your keywords, do some user research. Don't forget the user research. It's really powerful. But yeah, that's all I'll say about that. So now we iterate, right? We start building something. So the first thing we built, obviously, was some FAQs. The content has some pros, right? It's keyword optimized. It's got unlimited variations. It works in any language. And this was before Google cruelly removed them all. But yeah, the FAQs worked very well for a time. And then we evolved it to cover different use cases. This is a summary of trains from Madrid to Barcelona, or Barcelona to Madrid, telling you everything you need to know about that. This, if you're paying attention, is not in English. So we started targeting different languages and testing to make sure that the content we were producing also worked globally. And then we continued to go into other areas. I don't live in London or Brighton, so I don't necessarily know what train companies could go from A to B. So this was aimed to tell people like me more about that. And so on and so forth. To give you an idea of the scale that we work with, we have around 3 million pages, which we refresh once a month, across 31 locales or domains, and 7 different components. So, as I said, it's an iterative process, and we've learned a lot whilst we were doing it. And there's 2 main things to call out here. So the first thing is, it's proven to be a very powerful localization tool. It's taken our time to market for a new domain down by half, and subsequently also the costs down by half. And also, it's allowed us to go into new verticals as a company. As I said, the product vision, anywhere, anyway. Well, the anyway was ferries this year, and it proved very easy for us to adapt the content and start targeting the ferries segment as well. But whatever, did it work? So overall, it's been fast, efficient, scalable, cheap way of generating millions of texts. But that's just the what, right? That's just the measuring the inputs, not the output. So the outputs that we wanted to measure, and they're pretty similar across multiple projects, are the following. So did we do our job, right? Did we attract more users via organic, channels? So did our visibility increase? Now, we're not allowed to just get sessions, unfortunately. Our sessions have to convert. We're measured on revenue. So obviously, did it grow our revenue? And for that, we measured revenue. And then finally, were we doing all of this at the right price? It doesn't matter how many sessions you get if you're spending too much money and your ROI doesn't work as a free channel. That's not good. So I don't know. In my experience, if you offer someone more visibility that converts and brings in more revenue for less money, your CMO tends to be okay with it. And that's what happened with us. So yeah, in terms of visibility, we've grown in most of our core markets. And maybe a quick shout out to these little ones, Nordics and Latin America. As I said, the localization aspect of this has been very good for us as a business. And then in terms of revenue and cost, we've seen that the revenue has been increasing 40% roughly year on year for the last few years, COVID blip aside. And the overall cost of our content production has halved. But, we know that this space is evolving very quickly and things are changing, so what's next? What have we learned and what are we trying now? I think the main thing to bear in mind, at least for us, is that the content production differs by use case, and you need to have flexibility in how you approach solving different problems. Sometimes you need high-quality editorial content, sometimes you need a simple template, and sometimes you need, ChatGPT or whatever else it might be. So don't decide on one thing. Be flexible, be open, and test as much as you can to compare the two. But into some more specifics. As with everyone else, we've all played around with ChatGPT. Great. But what do you actually do with it on Monday, right? What do you use to make your business have better revenue numbers next month? For us, that was using ChatGPT as an efficiency driver in this whole process. So whether it's the first version of the first draft, more variations of something, or localizing from one language into 15 others, and then just QAing the output, all of that has massively helped us in our content production and localization. Maybe seen as, I haven't mentioned it yet, GPT versus data to text. We have a data to text model that we enhance with GPT. Now, the pros of this data to text, as I said earlier, were the control, the accuracy, and scale, right? Those three things remain true. It does have negatives compared to GPT models, such as it's less creative, the uniqueness and the variety isn't there. But you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater just because there's a new toy. So we want to make sure that we're making the right decision in a measured way. And I think that brings me on to the next point, which is, after that slide, there you go, which is data, right? How you produce the content is almost irrelevant. You need to do it. You need a content production process. But the core thing is, what data do you have that makes your business, that marks your business out as something different? In our case, it's the fact that we have multiple modes of transport and we can compare them in a way that most other companies can't, right? So what is your unique selling point, your unique data set that you can use? And then whether you use data to text or GPT, that's less important. It's more important to have something unique to say. We've invested a lot of time into the data engineering side of, payloads, JSONs, and all that stuff. So that brings me on to the last point. What are we doing now? Well, now we're testing, we're exploring different large language models that we can fine-tune with unique data sets. The idea is to keep that accuracy and the scale that we have from the current data-to-text solution, but to add in some more variety, uniqueness, and creativity. Of course, we won't just do it, right? We'll test it, we'll compare, and we'll come back to the same thing that we were doing before. The solution space is always going to change. You make one decision at one point in time, and then you move on, and you can come back to it and start the whole process again. Especially considering how much has changed in the last 12 months. But yeah, and maybe just to tie it up, who knows, maybe this large language model will be open source. Hey, see what I did? Anyway, if you have any discussion points, you want to talk about stuff more, hit me up, and thanks for listening. Cool.
Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.